It's not every cantor who can just keep going with a beautiful prayer while there's a screaming siren in the background. Did you even hear it?
I figured the helpers were on their way, so.
I mean, unfazed, just continued. That was excellent. And I do just have to say out loud that this evening that we're having, this beautiful flip-flop Shabbat, I am just in awe of what you, Cantor, Shelley, have put together for this night, the music, I guess we would call them mashups between some of the songs and the prayers. It's just fantastic and beautifully done and so much fun. So thank you for this. We're not done with it, but thank you for this. It's just been a great night, great night. So all week, I was going back and forth about what to speak about tonight. Not gonna lie, I flip-flopped several times. Did I do that okay, boys? No, I'm getting a cringe from my boys. That's okay. Flip-flop Shabbat is intended to emphasize the sort of easygoing spirit of our day of rest. It's a chance to lean into this beachy, airy, serene time together, which is sort of what Shabbat is always meant to be about. It's what it's supposed to feel like, but we're making it extra serene this evening with the themes. On the other hand, Shabbat has never been only about rest. It's a day about celebration. It's about enjoying family and friends. It's about being active in ways that are different from how we're active the rest of the week. And yes, it is even about giving ourselves time to talk about important topics, to discuss what is happening in the world around us, and to deal with some of the painful or difficult moments that we see and try to find a better way forward. All of that is Shabbat in the truest sense. So this particular week, leading up to the serenity of this flip-flop Shabbat, many of us were focused on events taking place back in Michigan, a place that our family just left, but which is, of course, still a strong part of our identity. And you may know that there was a very public and very important Senate primary on Tuesday. That race had been all over the media, framed as the next big test between the Democratic establishment and the growing DSA movement that is threatening to tear the Democrats apart. On one side of this equation was my good friend Haley Stevens, who has been our U.S. representative in Michigan since 2018, an incredibly effective legislator across the board and a very strong supporter of our Jewish community and of Israel. Both our Jewish community and Israel, each in their own right. On the other side was Abdul El-Sayed, a fairly radical candidate with no real legislative experience, some time in public health policy, and a disturbing pattern of following the same playbook as other DSA candidates recently, where demonizing Israel seems to be their singular rallying cry. In fact, some people involved in politics have started referring to campaigns like this as noun, verb, AIPAC. Ask him any question on any topic, and the answer will be a noun, a verb, and right to AIPAC. Like others, he has reflectively talked about AIPAC and Israel and Zionism and Jews as boogeymen. He excused the horrifying attack a few months ago at Michigan's Temple Israel that you certainly heard about, and basically said that he understood the murderer's attacker's motivation. He has appeared repeatedly with one of America's leading hate mongers and anti-Semites, Hassan Piker, which should disqualify him, in my opinion, from the start. He certainly doesn't believe Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. He unabashedly accuses us of genocide. The list goes on. A few weeks ago, I saw a very simple, short, straightforward post online by one of these prominent politicians, it was not El-Sayed, laying out 5 things they wanted to accomplish if and when they come to power. 5 things they want to do if they come to power. 1, Medicare for all. Obviously, there are different opinions on whether or not this is a good idea, but okay, it's an approach to a real issue for lots and lots of Americans. 2, a living wage. Again, there may be different approaches to our economy, but fine, this is certainly one of them. 3, stronger union protections. Same. 4, $10 a day childcare. Again, some might agree or disagree, but a reasonable approach that is in the mainstream of the conversation. And 5, last of the big 5 things they want to accomplish in Congress as a nation in order to assure that life is better for all Americans, end all aid to Israel. This one isn't like the rest. And this is the playbook. These DSA and other, what is now being called progressive candidates, as an aside, I don't appreciate that being used as a term. Progressive has always meant one thing, and this is something I think is very different. But nonetheless, these candidates have found something useful to them, something that countless generations of politicians and civic leaders and kings and despots and tyrants have found useful for many centuries, an easy way to rile up the public, get people shouting in the streets, and have people come to their side, especially if they're not really thinking about it, but just reacting. It's very simple, really. Just point the finger at the Jews, and it works every time. So this candidate, Abdul, has done, I believe, real damage to our Jewish community already. And if he does win this election, he would instantly become the most powerful DSA official in the country. Mayor Mabdani in New York gets lots of attention, lots of eyes, but he doesn't have much real power as a mayor. A US senator, someone in the US Senate, is a whole different ballgame, which to me is a little bit scary, which is why I, like many of my former colleagues in Michigan, have been outspoken in encouraging people to step back from the brink and think about what they're doing. Seems like that didn't work out on Tuesday, but still, it was not for some lack of trying, which might sound odd to some of you. Rabbis, Jewish clergy don't usually step into political issues like this, which is extremely rare. There are other religious leaders who do it more often. I've never quite understood that. But for us, that's not a thing that's typically done. So when we step back a little bit from this issue that was happening in Michigan, the question that it leads me to ask tonight on our behalf is, why talk about politics from the bimah at all? Why would this be something we might want to do? It can be divisive. We have a multitude of opinions, I'm sure, right here in the courtyard, certainly around our congregation. Some people might disagree with the things I say or that one of my colleagues might say. All that's true. But honestly, when in our 4,000-year history has one of our Jewish values been to avoid discussion or disagreement? The Talmud, which I would argue is literally one of the great literary and cultural accomplishments in the world over the last 2,000 years, is a record of fierce disagreement between people, all l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. The arguing, the disagreement, the intense battles, all done for the purpose of getting to a better place together through understanding and disagreement. One of the better known dictums from that same Talmud is a statement by Hillel in a section called Pirkei Avot, the wisdom of our ancestors. He said, Al tifrosh min hatzibor, which is commonly translated as, don't separate yourself from the community. And it's taken to mean, essentially, don't practice your faith alone. We're better when we're in this together. Don't just do your own thing. Be part of a Jewish community. But for any Hebrew scholars here, I'm sure we have some, it says, don't separate yourself from ha-tzibor. Don't separate yourself from ha-tzibor. And tzibor does not mean the Jewish community. Tzibor is a word that means public. The public, as in the world around us. We are not supposed to withdraw into a shtetl. We're not supposed to ignore the world beyond our community. That may not be how that statement has been taken commonly, but really what it's saying is don't separate ourselves from what's going on in the world. A smart person once told me that politics, if you want a definition of what politics is, sorry, Kenny, I don't know if you're hearing the, okay. A smart person once told me that politics is simply a term that means how do we interact as a society? Politics means what are the limits to appropriate behavior? How do we support those who need it? How do we work toward our shared goals? Politics defines how we live together in a town or a country. That's what politics is. Politics affects all of us. There's no way to talk about our daily life or our concerns or the things that we care about without resorting to politics. But it can be sticky, I recognize. It can be uncomfortable, and so we have to do that carefully. When people say they don't think there should be politics at the synagogue or politics on the bimah, I think often what we mean is we don't want partisan politics on the bimah. We don't want to be making choices between people. But talking about politics, talking about the issues that matter to us, we have to do that. So how do we draw a line between what is political compared to what is partisan? How do we decide when to discuss issues that are important to us as a community, but issues that maybe aren't so divisive or damaging that they might tear us apart? How do we find the right balance between internal spiritual concerns that are, of course, why we come here, and the external communal concerns that matter to us every single day? None of that is easy. Those are not easy questions. I don't have simple answers, but I would argue that all of that is necessary as a community, as a congregation. So let me offer just two guiding principles as a starting point. This is not meant to be comprehensive, but two things that I hope we'll think about in our conversation about how and when do we talk about political things. First of all, I believe that one of the fundamental questions that we should always be asking is whether a discussion about any particular issue can be offered through a Jewish lens or not. In other words, I don't think it's our responsibility to talk about politics as politics, the same way that someone out there might talk about it. But if there's an issue that Judaism specifically speaks to, or if we can apply Jewish values to a particular topic, then it becomes worthy of our attention in here. Second, I think most people would agree that Israel, broadly speaking, is different than other political issues. Israel is by definition a Jewish issue. This is our issue. This is related to our identity. This is a topic that we, as a temple, as a clergy team, as a community, absolutely have to address, even when it becomes part of a broader political conversation in America or beyond. Our temple is a spiritual home. It's one of the words that we use. This is a spiritual home, and it's a place where we look for serenity and comfort and learning and meaning. It's also a place where we walk through life together and where it is healthy to talk about the issues of the day, even when that can be uncomfortable and even when we might disagree. Judaism has thrived for 4,000 years, specifically because our tradition has evolved and grown continuously and has always offered not just wisdom that's ancient or that sits on a shelf, but wisdom that is pragmatic, wisdom that makes our lives better today. So if there are issues that all of us are already reading about, watching, discussing in our lives, but we avoid those issues here, then our temple becomes irrelevant to our lives. It doesn't speak to the issues we care about. It becomes a place to venerate the past, but not a place to build the future. So my deepest hope is that as we begin the process of taking some steps together, of getting to know each other, of understanding more about each other, that we will find ways to address our spiritual and our educational needs. We'll find ways to react to life cycle moments and to social justice goals, that we'll fulfill our desire for connection between people and our hopes for strength in moments that we need it. And yes, that we will wrestle with the difficult topics that all of us care so much about. And when we do, I believe deeply that our community will only grow in holiness, we'll grow in spirit, and we will grow in strength together. Together, we will build a future, even if it's not so easy to do. And on this Shabbat, I look forward to having this conversation together for many, many years. Shabbat Shalom.